The vast emptiness of space stretched endlessly in all directions. Stars blinked in the distance like tiny lanterns in an ocean of darkness. But among these stars, something desperate was happening. A message traveled through the void, jumping from one relay station to another, crossing thousands of light years. It was a call for help, filled with urgency and fear. Inside the command center of the USV Pathfinder, Captain Elias Carter sat in his chair, eyes fixed on the glowing screen in front of him. His ship was a deep space exploration and rescue vessel, designed to help those in need. And right now, someone needed help. "Commander, what do we have?" Carter asked, his voice calm but firm. Lieutenant Aiko Tanaka, the ship's communications officer, adjusted her headset. "It's a distress signal, Captain. Origin: Keltari Prime." The message is repeating in a loop. Carter leaned forward. He had heard of the Keltari before, a peaceful species known for their wisdom and diplomacy. They had never been a threat to anyone, and now they were the ones in danger. "Put it on the main screen," he ordered. A holographic projection appeared in the air before them. A female alien with smooth silver-blue skin and bright violet eyes filled the display. She wore royal robes, but her face was filled with fear. Behind her, smoke and fire blurred the background. Explosions echoed through the transmission. "This is Princess Diara of the Keltari Empire," she said, her voice shaking. "Our home is under attack. The Grax Dominion has invaded our world. We are a peaceful people. We cannot fight them. Our defenses have fallen. Please, if anyone can hear this, we need help." The message ended, then restarted from the beginning. A heavy silence filled the bridge. The crew exchanged uncertain glances. The Grax Dominion was one of the most feared warlike species in the galaxy. They were ruthless, expanding their empire by crushing weaker civilizations. The Keltari had no army, no fleet, only their culture and knowledge. They had no chance against the Grax. Commander Sarah Valdez, the ship's tactical officer, crossed her arms. "Captain, the Grax are known for their cruelty. If they take Keltari Prime, the entire population could be wiped out or enslaved." Carter exhaled slowly. His orders were clear. USV Pathfinder was not a warship. They were not supposed to interfere in conflicts. But how could they ignore this? Lieutenant Tanaka cleared her throat. "Sir, we're the only ones close enough to respond. The message has been playing for hours, but no one else has answered." Carter stood up and walked toward the large viewing window. The stars outside seemed cold, distant. He thought about all the times humanity had faced war, suffering, and destruction. But humans had never given up. They had always fought back. And now, the Keltari were facing the same darkness. He turned back to his crew. "We're going in." There was no hesitation, no arguments. The crew nodded, ready to follow his lead. "Navigator, set course for Keltari Prime. Maximum speed," Carter commanded. The engines roared to life as the USV Pathfinder surged forward. The stars outside stretched into long streaks of light as the ship entered warp speed, racing toward the battle. Hours later, they arrived. The moment they dropped out of warp, the situation became clear. Keltari Prime was burning. From orbit, they could see the devastation. Entire cities were in flames. Enemy warships floated above the planet, their weapons firing relentlessly at the surface. The Grax fleet was massive. At least a dozen heavily armed cruisers surrounded the planet like predators circling their prey. Scanning for the princess's location, Tanaka reported, fingers flying over her console. "She's in the royal palace, or what's left of it." On the main screen, the palace was a shattered ruin. Smoke billowed from its towers, and enemy troops stormed the courtyards. Princess Ziara was still inside, trapped. Valdez looked at Carter. "Sir, we need a plan. There's no way we can fight that fleet." Carter nodded. They couldn't engage in direct combat, but they didn't need to. Their mission was to get in extract the princess, and get out before the Grax could react. "Prepare the drop team," he ordered. "We're going down." Minutes later, inside the deployment bay, a group of elite human Marines suited up. They checked their weapons, adjusted their armor, and prepared for the dangerous mission ahead. Lieutenant Valdez addressed her team. "We go in fast, we get the princess, and we get out. Stay sharp, stay quiet, and stick together." A Marine named Davis grinned. "Just another day, huh?" Valdez smirked. "Something like that." The drop pod doors sealed shut, and the countdown began. Launching in 3, 2, 1. The pod detached from the USV Pathfinder, plummeting through the planet's atmosphere. The heat shields glowed red as they cut through the thick clouds of smoke and fire. Below, enemy troops moved through the city, unaware of the humans descending from above. The pod slammed into the ground near the palace ruins. The doors burst open, and the Marines moved out, weapons ready. Inside the palace, Princess Zayara and a few surviving guards fought desperately against the invaders. She clutched a small energy pistol, her hands shaking, but she refused to surrender. She had sent the distress signal, but deep down, she hadn't truly believed anyone would come. Then, out of nowhere, a figure in dark armor appeared before her, holding out a hand. "Princess Zayara," Valdez asked. The princess's violet eyes widened in shock. You came." Valdez smirked. Humanity never ignores a cry for help. Outside, enemy forces were closing in. The extraction was about to get dangerous. But for the first time, hope flickered in the princess's heart. Humanity had answered, and they weren't leaving without her. The air inside the ruined palace was thick with smoke and dust. The sounds of battle echoed through the broken hallways. Explosions, distant screams, the heavy footsteps of Grax soldiers moving closer. Princess Zayara clutched the edge of a fallen pillar, her violet eyes filled with shock as she stared at the human soldiers before her. She had sent her message into the void, expecting silence. But now, standing before her, was Lieutenant Sarah Valdez and her team of armored Marines. Humans, warriors from a distant world, had come to save her. Valdez extended a hand. "We don't have much time. Princess, are you ready to leave?" Zayara hesitated. You actually came." Valdez smirked. Humanity never ignores a cry for help. Before the princess could reply, a deep mechanical voice echoed from the palace entrance. "Find the princess. Kill her guards." The Grax soldiers had arrived. Valdez's instincts kicked in. "Move. Now." The Marines formed a defensive line, their rifles glowing with energy as they took positions behind fallen debris. Red beams of light shot through the smoke as the first Grax warriors stormed in. They were tall, reptilian creatures with thick armor and deadly plasma weapons. Suppressing fire, Valdez ordered. Her team opened fire. Blue streaks of energy flashed through the air, slamming into the enemy soldiers. The Grax roared in fury, returning fire with their own powerful weapons. Stone walls shattered under the force of the battle, and the room became a storm of light and sound. Zayara's heart pounded. She had never seen combat like this. The Kelteri were not warriors. They were diplomats, thinkers, scientists. She had always believed war was a failure of civilization. But the humans fought with a kind of determination she had never witnessed before. They weren't just trying to survive. They were fighting to win. Valdez ducked behind cover, tapping her earpiece. "Captain, we have the princess." Extraction point. Up in orbit, aboard the USV Pathfinder, Captain Elias Carter watched the battle unfold on his tactical display. The Grax fleet had not yet noticed them, but it was only a matter of time. "Head to the rooftop," Carter replied. "We'll pick you up there." Valdez nodded. "Understood. Team, fall back." The Marines moved quickly, pushing through the burning palace as enemy forces closed in. Zayara followed, her breath coming fast. She had lived in this palace all her life, but now it was a battlefield. At last, they'd reached the rooftop. Smoke rose from the city below, and the sky was filled with the dark shapes of Grax warships. The USV Pathfinder hovered in the distance, its engines glowing as it prepared for pickup. Valdez activated a signal beacon. "Captain, we're ready. Get us out of here." Carter nodded to his pilot. "Bring us in." The ship's side bay doors opened, and a powerful energy tether extended down toward the rooftop. The Marines hooked themselves to the harnesses, ready for extraction. But then, a deep rumble shook the air. From the streets below, a massive Grax war mech stomped into view. It was a towering machine of metal and fire, armed with heavy cannons, its glowing red eyes locked onto the humans on the rooftop. "Target acquired," its robotic voice declared. Ziara gasped. "It's a siege walker. It will destroy us all." The mech's cannons powered up, preparing to fire. Carter's voice crackled over the comms. "Valdez, that thing will tear you apart before we can pull you up. We need to take it down." Valdez gritted her teeth. "Ideas." One of her Marines, Davis, smirked. "We've got rocket launchers, don't we?" Valdez nodded. "Good enough for me. Aim for the joints." The Marines dropped to one knee, pulling out compact missile launchers from their packs. The mech fired first. Its energy blast scorched across the rooftop, sending debris flying. But the humans were faster. Fire. 4 rockets streaked through the air, slamming into the mech's knee joints. The explosion sent shockwaves across the rooftop, and the towering war machine stumbled. Sparks and smoke poured from its damaged limbs. Davis reloaded. One more should do it. The mech tried to recover, its cannons preparing to fire again. But before it could, Valdez took careful aim and launched a final rocket straight at its head. The explosion was blinding. The mech's entire upper half erupted in flames before collapsing into the burning streets below. Zayara's mouth fell open. That was incredible. Valdez grinned. "Welcome to how humans solve problems." The energy tether lowered again. "All right, time to go." One by one, the Marines hooked themselves onto the harness and were lifted into the ship. Valdez made sure Ziara was secured before joining them. As the USV Pathfinder pulled away from the rooftop, the Grax forces swarmed the area, but it was too late. Humanity had won this battle. As the ship ascended toward orbit, Zayara watched her burning city grow smaller below. A lump formed in her throat. Her people were still suffering, and her home was still in danger. She turned to Carter, who stood on the bridge, watching the situation unfold on the screen. "Captain," she said softly, "saving me was an act of great kindness, but my people need more than just my survival. They need hope. They need a way to fight back." Carter met her gaze. "We're not done yet, Princess. Humanity never ignores a cry for help, and we sure as stars don't abandon those we've saved." Zayara felt something stir inside her, something new. Hope. As the USV Pathfinder sped away from Kelturi Prime, the crew knew this was only the beginning. The real battle was yet to come, and humanity was ready for it. The USV Pathfinder soared through the darkness of space, speeding away from Kelturi Prime. The mission had been a success. Princess Ziara was safe, and the Marines had made it back alive. But there was no time to celebrate. The Grax Dominion still held the planet, and its people were suffering. Inside the command center, Captain Elias Carter stood with his arms crossed, staring at the holographic map of Kelturi Prime. Red markers covered the entire planet, showing Grax control zones. The Kelturi capital city was nothing but ruins now, and enemy warships patrolled the skies. Princess Zayara stepped forward, her violet eyes filled with worry. "Captain, I thank you for saving me, but my people are still in danger. We must do something." Carter turned to her. "I want to help, Princess, but let's be honest. Our ship is small, and we don't have an army. Taking on the entire Grax fleet would be suicide." Ziara's hands clenched into fists. "So you're saying we should run?" "No," Carter said firmly. I'm saying we need a plan. A real one. Commander Sarah Valdez leaned over the tactical display. If we go back now, we'll be blasted out of the sky before we can even land. But if we find a way to weaken their defenses, Lieutenant Aiko Tanaka, the ship's communications officer, suddenly spoke up. Captain, I've been analyzing enemy transmissions. The Grax are using a central command station in orbit to control their entire invasion force. It's heavily shielded, but if we take it out, their forces on the ground will be completely disorganized. Carter raised an eyebrow. So you're saying if we destroy one station, we cut off their ability to command the invasion? Tanaka nodded. Exactly. Without it, their ground troops will be confused, and their fleet will have to adjust their strategy. That will give the Keltari resistance a chance to fight back. Zayara's eyes widened. The resistance. Carter turned to her. Are there still Keltari fighters left? She hesitated for a moment before nodding. Yes, some of my people refuse to surrender. They are hiding in the mountains, striking against the Grax whenever they can. But they are few in number, and they lack weapons. Valdez smiled. If we take out that command station and supply the resistance with weapons, they might have a real shot at fighting back. Carter stroked his chin. Risky, but possible. He looked at Sayara. If we do this, we need to contact your resistance fighters and tell them to be ready. Sayara straightened her back, determination in her voice. I will contact them. Just tell me what we need to do. Carter nodded. All right, people. Let's plan an impossible mission. The battle plan. Hours later, the crew of the USV Pathfinder had gathered in the war room. A holographic display of the Grax command station floated in the air. The station was a massive structure orbiting Keltari Prime, surrounded by heavy defenses. Valdez pointed at the station. This thing controls all Grax forces on the planet. If we destroy it, they lose their ability to coordinate. Davis, one of the Marines, whistled. Looks like a tough nut to crack. Carter smirked. That's why we aren't cracking it head-on. He pressed a button, and the display zoomed in on the station's underbelly. There's a maintenance port here. It's lightly guarded, since the Grax don't expect anyone to attack from this angle. We send in a small team, plant explosives inside the reactor core, and get out before it blows. Sayara frowned. And how do we get close without being detected? Tanaka grinned. We fly in using an asteroid. Everyone turned to look at her. Carter chuckled. Explain. Tanaka pulled up another display. There's an asteroid field nearby. We can use one of the larger asteroids as cover, hide our ship behind it, and drift toward the station. Their sensors won't pick us up because they'll think it's just space debris. Valdez nodded in approval. Once we're close enough, we deploy in small fighter pods, breach the station, and set the charges. Carter glanced around the room. Any objections? No one spoke. The plan was risky. But if it worked, it could change everything. Carter clapped his hands. All right, let's get ready. Mission begins. The USV Pathfinder moved toward the asteroid field, its engines running at low power to avoid detection. Inside the ship, the Marines prepared their gear, checking weapons and explosives. Sayara stood among them, wearing a light combat suit. Valdez raised an eyebrow. You're coming. Sayara nodded. This is my fight too. Carter smirked. All right, princess. Just stay close. As they approached the asteroid field, Tanaka skillfully maneuvered the ship behind a large chunk of floating rock. Slowly, they drifted toward the command station, hidden by the asteroid's mass. The Grax station loomed ahead, massive and heavily armed. If they were detected now, they wouldn't stand a chance. Tanaka whispered, "We're in position." Carter nodded. "Deploy." The ship's hangar bay doors opened, and 4 small fighter pods launched out, carrying the strike team toward the station. They were tiny, nearly invisible to enemy scanners. As they neared the maintenance port, Valdez hacked into the security system and disabled the external sensors. Breach in 3, 2, 1. The doors slid open, and the Marines rushed inside. The station was quiet, with only a few Grax engineers moving about. Davis grinned. Too easy. Just then, an alarm blared. Carter groaned. You had to say it. Enemy reinforcements poured into the corridor. The humans took cover as red energy blasts filled the air. Valdez shouted, "Move! We need to reach the reactor." The team fought their way through the station, blasting through Grax forces as they ran. At last, they reached the reactor core, a massive chamber filled with humming energy conduits. Davis planted the explosives while Valdez covered him. Carter tapped his comm. "Tanaka, get the ship ready. We're leaving." Outside, the USV Pathfinder powered up its engines, waiting for the team to return. Davis finished setting the last charge. Timer set for 5 minutes. Carter signaled, "Go, go, go." The team sprinted back to their escape pods as Grax forces chased them. Explosions rocked the station as they launched into space, heading toward the waiting USV Pathfinder. As soon as they were aboard, Carter yelled, "Punch it." The ship blasted away, just as the station erupted in a massive explosion. The Grax fleet, suddenly leaderless, fell into disarray. Ziara watched the explosion, hope shining in her eyes. "We did it." Carter grinned. "That's just the beginning." The war for Kelturi Prime had begun, and humanity was ready to fight. The explosion of the Grax command station was visible even from the planet's surface. A massive fireball erupted in the sky, sending shockwaves through the enemy's ranks. The once coordinated Grax forces now moved in confusion, their orders cut off. Deep in the mountains of Kelturi Prime, hidden within a network of underground tunnels, the Kelturi resistance fighters watched in awe. They had spent months struggling against the enemy, barely surviving. But now, the impossible had happened. Commander Arvin, leader of the resistance, turned to his scouts. "Did you see that?" He whispered, his voice full of disbelief. "The Grax station is gone." A young fighter, Talaris, nodded. "Someone destroyed it. Someone out there is fighting for us." Arvin clenched his fists. "Then we can't stay in hiding any longer. If we strike now, we might have a chance." A beeping sound interrupted him. One of their old communication devices flickered to life. Static filled the air before a voice came through. "Resistance forces, this is Captain Elias Carter of the USV Pathfinder. We've taken out the Grax command station. The enemy is in disarray. If you want your planet back, now is the time to fight." Silence filled the cave. Then Arvin grabbed the radio and replied, "Who are you? Why would humans risk their lives for us?" Carter's voice was calm and steady. "Because humanity never ignores a cry for help." Arvin exhaled slowly. He had never met a human before. He had heard stories of them. Strange, unpredictable, but fierce warriors when pushed. And now they had destroyed a Grax command station for his people. Arvin made his decision. "We will fight." Arming the resistance, the USV Pathfinder landed in a hidden valley, its engines humming softly as it touched down. The resistance fighters approached cautiously, their weapons raised. They had never seen a human ship before. It was sleek, metallic, and unlike anything they had. The bay doors opened, and Carter, Valdez, and Princess Diara stepped out, followed by a group of human Marines carrying crates of supplies. Arvin studied Carter, the man who had helped change the course of this war. "You don't look like a warrior." Carter smirked. "I get that a lot." Ziara stepped forward. "Commander Arvin, these humans saved me. They destroyed the Grax command station. Now they're here to help us take back our home." Arvin studied her for a moment before nodding. "Then let's get to work." The humans opened the supply crates, revealing energy rifles, grenades, and medical kits. The resistance fighters stared in amazement. Valdez lifted a rifle and handed it to Arvin. "These are pulse weapons. They fire energy rounds strong enough to punch through Grax armor. Aim for the joints. It's their weak spot." Arvin tested the weight of the weapon. This will change everything. Carter clapped him on the shoulder. That's the idea. Over the next few hours, the humans trained the resistance in how to use the new weapons. The Kelteri learned quickly, their determination fueling them. By nightfall, they were ready. Striking back, the plan was simple. The Grax forces in the city were still confused from losing their command station. The resistance would hit them hard, striking key locations to drive them out. The first target was the main supply depot. Without it, the Grax would struggle to maintain control. Under the cover of darkness, the resistance moved into position. Carter, Valdez, and a small team of Marines joined them. Arvin signaled his fighters, "Wait for the signal." Inside the Grax depot, enemy soldiers moved about, unaware of the danger approaching. They still believed they were in control. Then the first explosion went off. A fuel tank erupted in flames, lighting up the night sky. The battle had begun. The resistance charged in, firing their new pulse rifles. The Grax roared in surprise, trying to fight back, but without orders from their command station, they were slow to react. Valdez led a squad through the side entrance, taking out enemy guards one by one. Keep moving. Don't let them regroup. Carter and Arvin fought side by side, clearing a path toward the main control room. Grax officers scrambled to send orders, but their communications were still broken. A Grax warrior lunged at Carter, swinging a heavy plasma blade. Carter ducked, rolling to the side before firing a precise shot into its knee joint. The warrior collapsed with a roar, and Arvin finished it off with a pulse blast. The battle raged for nearly an hour, but in the end, the humans and the resistance emerged victorious. The depot was theirs. Zayara arrived shortly after, stepping over the remains of the battlefield. She looked around at her people, tired, wounded, but victorious. Arvin walked up to Carter, gripping his forearm. "I never thought I'd say this to an outsider, but thank you. We couldn't have done this without you." Carter smiled. "We're just getting started. The war for Keltari Prime begins." The victory at the depot sent a message across the planet. The resistance was back, and they were stronger than ever. As word spread, more Keltari civilians rose up against their oppressors. Small pockets of fighters attacked Grax patrols, stole supplies, and freed captured cities. The Grax, once confident in their rule, now faced a growing rebellion. Aboard the USV Pathfinder, Carter watched the reports coming in. He turned to Zayara. "Your people are fighting back." She nodded. "Because you gave them hope." Valdez leaned back in her chair. "But the Grax won't stay confused forever. Sooner or later, they'll send reinforcements." Carter exhaled. "Then we need to end this before that happens." Zayara met his gaze. "I know where their leader is." Carter raised an eyebrow. "You're thinking what I think you're thinking." She nodded. "If we take out the Grax warlord in charge of this invasion, the rest of their forces will collapse." Arvin grinned. "A decapitation strike." Carter smirked. "Now that's a plan I like." The humans and the Kelteri resistance had done the impossible. They had struck back. But the hardest part of the battle was yet to come. The war for Keltari Prime was far from over, and humanity was not done fighting. The rebellion had begun. Across Keltari Prime, resistance fighters struck at Grax forces, driving them back step by step. With the Grax command station destroyed, their communication was in chaos, and their once powerful invasion force struggled to maintain control. But Captain Elias Carter knew the war was far from over. The Grax were still strong, and if they managed to regroup, they could crush the resistance. The only way to end the fight was to remove the head of the snake, the Grax warlord leading the invasion. And Princess Zayara knew exactly where to find him. A dangerous plan. Inside the command center of the USV Pathfinder, a holographic image of a massive fortress flickered in the air. It was built into the side of a rocky cliff, surrounded by energy shields and automated turrets. Zayara pointed to the central tower. This is where Warlord Vortak commands his forces. If we take him out, the Grax army will fall apart. Commander Valdez crossed her arms. That place is a death trap. How do you suggest we get inside? Arvin, leader of the Kelturi resistance, smirked. We don't storm the gates. We sneak in. Carter raised an eyebrow. You have a way in. Arvin nodded. There are old tunnels under the fortress, abandoned when my people still ruled this planet. If we enter through there, we can get inside without being detected. Valdez glanced at Carter. Sounds risky. Carter grinned. Risky is what we do best. He turned to Arvin. Get your best fighters. We move at night, into the darkness. The resistance team moved through the night like shadows, slipping past enemy patrols. Carter led the way, his pulse rifle held ready. Beside him, Zayara walked with quiet determination, while Valdez and Arvin followed closely behind with a squad of Keltari warriors. They'd reached the hidden tunnel entrance, a narrow cave hidden behind thick vegetation. Arvin knelt, brushing away dirt to reveal an old metal hatch. With a deep breath, he pulled it open. A dark passage stretched before them. No turning back now, Carter muttered. One by one, they climbed inside, sealing the hatch behind them. The tunnel was cold and damp, the air heavy with dust. Their footsteps echoed softly as they moved forward, their lights casting eerie shadows on the walls. After nearly an hour of walking, Arvin stopped. We're beneath the fortress. Zayara looked up, her voice quiet but firm. Then let's finish this. The silent infiltration. They climbed up through a maintenance shaft, emerging in a dimly lit storage room deep inside the fortress. Valdez checked her scanner. No guards nearby. Carter nodded. Let's keep it that way. Moving quickly, they navigated through the corridors, avoiding patrols and security cameras. The fortress was massive, but the Grax had grown overconfident. They never expected anyone to breach their stronghold. Finally, they reached the central tower. The warlord's command room was just ahead. Carter motioned to Valdez. Take the left flank. Arvin, cover the exit. We don't want any surprises. Zayara took a deep breath. Let's end this. The showdown. Inside the command chamber, Warlord Vortak stood before a massive holographic display, barking orders to his officers. We must crush these rebels before reinforcements arrive, he growled. Deploy all remaining forces. The humans must not interfere any further. But before he could continue, the doors burst open. Carter and his team stormed in, weapons raised. Sorry to interrupt, but I'm afraid your invasion is over. Vortak turned, his red eyes narrowing. He was massive, even by Grax standards. Covered in thick armor, his muscular form radiating strength and fury. You dare challenge me, human? Vortak snarled. You are nothing compared to the might of the Grax. Carter smirked. Funny, I heard the same thing before we blew up your command station. Vortak roared in rage and charged forward, his massive war blade slicing through the air. Carter rolled aside as the blade slammed into the floor, sending sparks flying. Valdez and Arvin opened fire, their pulse rifles hammering into Vortak's armor. The warlord barely flinched. With terrifying speed, he swung his weapon again, forcing them back. Zayara stepped forward, her energy sword igniting with a sharp hum. You invaded my home. You killed my people. This ends now. She lunged, her blade meeting Vortak's in a shower of sparks. The two clashed, steel against energy, their movements blindingly fast. Carter and Valdez flanked him, firing carefully to avoid hitting Zayara. Vortak deflected the shots with his thick gauntlets, roaring in fury. But he was only one, and they were many. Valdez threw a grenade, forcing Vortak to stumble back. Carter took the opening, firing a precise shot into the gap in his armor. The warlord staggered, growling in pain. Zayara seized the moment. With a powerful swing, her sword sliced through his chest. piercing his heart. Vortak's red eyes widened in shock. He fell to his knees, his blade slipping from his grasp. "You will never win," he rasped, before collapsing lifelessly to the floor. Silence filled the chamber. Zayara exhaled, gripping her sword tightly. "It's over." Carter placed a hand on her shoulder. "No, Princess, it's just beginning." The fall of the Grax. With Vortak dead, the Grax forces lost all coordination. Without their warlord, their leadership crumbled. The resistance launched a full-scale assault, retaking city after city. The Grax, leaderless and confused, had no choice but to retreat. Days later, the final Grax warship fled the planet, leaving Keltari Prime free once more. In the newly liberated capital, Carter, Valdez, and the rest of the human crew stood beside Zayara and Arvin as the Keltari people cheered. Zayara turned to Carter. "You saved my world. How can we ever repay you?" Carter smiled. "You don't have to. We don't fight for rewards. We fight because it's the right thing to do." Arvin stepped forward. "The Keltari will never forget this. If humanity ever needs us, we will stand by your side." Carter nodded. "Then let's hope we meet again as allies, not as warriors." As the humans prepared to leave, Zayara looked up at the stars. Her people were free, but a new future awaited. And she knew, because of humanity, that future was bright. For the first time in years, the skies of Keltari Prime were free of enemy ships. The Grax had fled, their forces broken and leaderless. Across the planet, Keltari people emerged from hiding, stepping into the light of their reclaimed cities. But while the war had ended, the work was far from over. Captain Elias Carter stood on a balcony overlooking the capital city. Smoke still rose from some buildings, and the streets were filled with survivors, resistance fighters, and families reunited after years of occupation. Commander Valdez walked up beside him. "We did it," she said. "The Grax are gone." Carter nodded. "Yeah, but victory is just the first step. Now comes the hard part. Rebuilding. A world in ruins." Princess Zayara, now the rightful leader of Keltari Prime, moved through the city streets, speaking with her people. She saw the devastation left behind, the broken homes, the hunger in their eyes, the scars of war. She clenched her fists. The Grax had taken so much from them, but they had not taken everything. The Keltari still stood, and as long as they stood, they could rebuild. Arvin, leader of the resistance, approached her. "The people look to you now," he said. Zayara sighed. "I am not my father. I was never trained to rule." Arvin smiled. "You didn't need training to fight for your people. And you don't need training to lead them now. You just need to care." She took a deep breath. "Then let's start by helping those who need it most." Together, they began organizing efforts, setting up medical camps, distributing food, and finding shelter for those who had lost everything. The humans stayed to help Carter and his crew had planned to leave once the war was won. But as they saw the suffering around them, they knew they couldn't just walk away. "We can't just leave them like this," Valdez said. Carter agreed. "No, we can't." He called for a meeting with his crew and the Keltari leaders. "The USV Pathfinder is equipped with supplies, medicine, food, construction equipment. We'll stay and help rebuild," he announced. Zayara's eyes filled with gratitude. "You've already done so much. We can't ask you to." Carter interrupted her with a small smile. "You didn't ask. We decided." The humans set to work. Engineers repaired power grids, medics treated the wounded, and soldiers cleared debris from the streets. Arvin watched in amazement as humans worked side by side with the Keltari. "Your people are different." Carter smirked. "Yeah, we get that a lot. The hidden threat." For weeks, the planet slowly returned to life. People laughed again, children played in the streets, and the stars above no longer held the threat of invasion. But not everyone was celebrating. Deep in the ruins of an old Grax command center, A hidden transmission was sent into the void of space. A single Grax officer, one of Vortak's surviving lieutenants, activated a distress beacon. He growled into the communicator, "Warlord Vortak has fallen. Keltari Prime is lost. But the humans are dangerous." His red eyes glowed with anger. "Send this message to the High Command. They must know what has happened here." The transmission vanished into space, traveling toward the unknown. The war on Keltari Prime was over. But for humanity, a greater conflict was coming. The sun rose over Keltari Prime, casting golden light over the once broken cities. The war was over, and for the first time in years, the people of the planet could look up at the sky without fear. But Captain Elias Carter knew that peace was fragile. And somewhere out there, the Grax were still watching. A promise fulfilled. The humans had stayed longer than expected, helping rebuild Keltari Prime. With their advanced technology, cities were restored faster than anyone thought possible. In the capital square, a large crowd had gathered. Princess Zayara stood at the center, wearing a ceremonial robe of deep blue, the traditional color of Keltari royalty. Beside her, Arvin stood tall, representing the resistance fighters who had won back their world. Carter and his crew stood in front of them, dressed in their military uniforms. Zayara's voice echoed through the square. "Today, we stand free because of the bravery of our people, and because of the courage of those who came from the stars to fight for us." The crowd cheered, voices rising in celebration. She turned to Carter. "Captain Elias Carter, humanity has shown us kindness when no one else did. We owe you more than we can ever repay." Carter shook his head. "You owe us nothing, Princess. We don't fight for rewards. We fight because it's the right thing to do." Arvin stepped forward. "The Keltari people will never forget this. If humanity ever needs us, we will be there." Carter nodded. "I hope we meet again as allies, not as warriors." A friend's farewell. Later that day, Carter stood near his ship, the USV Pathfinder, watching as the crew prepared for departure. Zayara approached him, her expression serious. "Are you sure you have to leave?" Carter sighed. "We have to. There are other places out there that need help. But if you ever need us, you know where to find us." Zayara smiled. "Then let this not be a goodbye, but a promise. We will meet again." They clasped hands, a silent agreement passing between them. Nearby, Valdez nudged Arvin. "You could always come with us, you know." Arvin smirked. "Tempting. But I think my people need me here." Valdez chuckled. "That's what I figured." The humans boarded their ship, and with a powerful hum, the USV Pathfinder rose into the sky. From the ground, the Keltari watched their saviors disappear into the stars. The message that changed everything. As the USV Pathfinder traveled back toward human space, Carter stood on the bridge, sipping a cup of coffee. Everything had gone better than expected. Keltari Prime was free, the people were safe, and for once, things felt right. Then the ship's AI, EVA, spoke. "Captain, you need to see this." A holographic display lit up in front of him. It was an intercepted transmission, sent from Keltari Prime shortly after the battle. The message was Grax. Carter's face darkened as he read the words. "The humans are more dangerous than we thought. They must be stopped before they become a threat to the Empire. Alert the High Command. We must prepare for war." Carter exhaled slowly. "So that's how it is." Valdez walked up beside him, reading the message over his shoulder. "Looks like we made an impression." Carter smirked. "Yeah, and something tells me they won't forget it." He turned toward the crew. "Set course for Earth. We need to warn them." As the USV Pathfinder vanished into the void, one thing was certain. This was just the beginning. Because now, the Grax weren't just fighting the Keltari. They were coming for humanity.